Great. So welcome everybody. Thank you all for your patience. And as Wake said, our Mesas are telling us something. It's time to be here. It's time to connect. And so here we are. So thank you everybody. And I'll just begin by saying that I'm Trisha Bennett and I'm one of the founders of Shamans Directory. And there are a bunch of us on here who are involved in working very hard to bring Shamans Directory to life. So if anybody wants to raise your hand as one of the functions or put a heart or a little fire to let people know that you've been involved in the creation of the directory, feel free to use the reactions button and let people know that you're here. And feel free to say hello in the chat and tell us where you're from. And let's see, I've made some notes here. So Shamans Directory is a pretty brand new directory for shamanic services. We opened the doors for healers and teachers to start registering for the directory back in April. And we just activated the Find a Shaman function in last month in August, which is super exciting. And really our hope is that Shamans Directory will become something like Psychology Today or Therapy Tribe or Better Health, where when anyone anywhere is looking for support for something that's going on in their life, that they'll think of us just as often as they would think of any other great directory to find support services. So we're very excited to be here, and if you haven't checked us out, please do at Shamans Directory online and on social media and on YouTube. We have others of these videos that are available past sessions for your review as well. So welcome. And I'm also here today with Wake Wheeler, who is our co-host today. And he's also one of the regular hosts of our Shamans Directory Lives. And he's going to be starting another series with us called Shaman to Shaman, which is going to be interviews with shaman from around the world, as well as interviews from different healers and teachers that are listed on our directory, so that you can get to know them better and to get to know what their practice might be like and what it might be like to book a session with them. And the last thing I'll say about the directory before we get into our program today is that we have some really amazing healers and teachers that are already registered on the directory. And if you are willing to support them, if you feel that you could use some support, or that you'd like a coca leaf reading to see what's going on in your life, or that you just would like to support someone who's either starting a practice or deepening their practice, please check out the members of our directory because they're pretty amazing people. So with that, we will launch into today's program. And Wake, in addition to being one of our ambassadors and a regular host, is also the founder of Sacred Pathways. And the website is sacredpathways.us, where he offers coaching and support for shamanic practitioners and also has a really amazing marketplace for Andean weaving and different kinds of cloths and stone, and he supports a number of different weaving communities in the Andes. So I recommend that you check out his website as well when you have an opportunity. So today, our session today is called Mesa Love, Rekindling the Magic. And for those of us who have studied in the Andean tradition, you could say Mesa Munay, Rekindling the Magic. And Munay actually in the Andean tradition means love under your will. It means love by choice, just that it's actually making a choice to love. And when Wake and I were preparing this session, we were thinking about, there are medicine bundles built all over the world in many, many different traditions. And some of them are stone and cloth, like in the Andean tradition. And others have herbs and talismans and tinctures and all sorts of things that people put into their medicine bags or medicine bundles And everything that they choose to put into their medicine bundle is a reflection of their own personal journey. So it's a reflection of the major moments in their life, the significant people, the significant healings or teachings that they've received. And they put all of those pieces into a bundle. And as I love what Wake says, it's like this portable altar. It's a portable ceremony. It's a portable version of our teachings and our all of our greatest lessons throughout life. And so today is an opportunity for us to remember the process of creating our medicine bundles and to remember what it was that actually had us fall in love with our own medicine. And so we want to invite you to, if you have your Mesa with you or a medicine bundle with you, if you don't, you can take a minute to find it. Or if you're actually a visitor and you don't have a medicine bundle of any kind, you're welcome to find 2 small stones that fit in the palm of your hand, or just to make notes while you're here, and you can always do this later. And also to have a pad of paper or a journal or a laptop or something that you can take some notes on today, because you may want to do that. You can also post things in the chat if you want to share insights that you're having, for just to share them yourself, to sort of be accountable to your own process, or to sort of inspire others or help other people to remember their process as well. So, yeah, I think that's a good start. Today's about really remembering the journey of putting our medicine bundle together, and how we got connected to our most authentic self through that process of building that bundle. So thanks. I'll introduce Wake.
Thank you so much, Tricia. And when we were thinking about this, we thought, well, let's do this together. Let's explore the Mesa together. Not only the two of us, but all of us together, to reacquaint ourselves with our sacred bundle, and to know that it's all about our journey of spirit. It's all about us. It's all about what we've been through. It's all about the support of the lineage, and the support of all medicine people through time, because it's our time now. And I think it would be best to begin through touch. And what I suggest is that you reach for your sacred bundle, and allow yourself to feel it in your hands. And this is a sharing experience. This is an experience where we're going to offer some information and make some suggestions. We're going to share certain experiences, and then share our reactions, our experiences in the chat if we choose. This is about a deepening. It's about a deepening not only with our mesas, but with our spirit paths. So, as Tricia says, if you have a mesa, please reach for it and bring it to your touch. And if you don't have a mesa, as Tricia is suggesting, to have 2 stones, and I would add to that, if there's something at your hands or nearby, a sacred cloth of some kind. Now, it doesn't have to have Andean patterns. It can be a napkin. It can be a clean handkerchief. It can be whatever would hold your stones, because this is the gift and this is the beauty of the Mesa. It's the synergy of stone and cloth together. It's the most simple tools, and it's combining them. It's in the combining of them, and through the intention and through the experience that we deepen our own journey of spirit. So, do people have their mesas? Are you willing to hold it in your hands? Just let that experience happen, just for a moment. You can feel the weight of your bundle. There's a fragrance there of the Andes, in this case, and of your spirit journey, wherever you've been, and whatever part you're on, whatever season you're on. The Mesa has seasons. When it was fresh, and we'll get into this more deeply in a little bit, but when it was fresh, it was just so exciting to be initiated into an unbroken lineage of medicine men and women who found value, who found support, who found healing through their own personal bundle. And it's this kind of experience that was new to us, was new to me, that had been re-experienced time and time again by all the medicine people, in particular of the Andes. But what this truly is an invitation to, or a portal to, the exploration of our own indigenous souls. What lives really deeply within us becomes recognized, becomes mirrored, and becomes expressed in the world through the cloth and what it contains. Now, we want to express our deep appreciation for everyone's journey, their own unique calling, that you may use your stones and your mesa directly in your healing practice. You may use it for your own personal journey. It may be a reminder of the classes and experiences with others as we've learned the cosmology and the practices of shamanism itself. It may be for world work, for putting Sami, positive energy, a gift to the Kausai Pacha, to the universe of invisible living energy itself. There are so many ways, but what connects us is this bundle. What truly connects us is our hearts. And yet, in physical form, something we can touch, something we can work with, it's the Mesa. And not only do we all share this, we have this in common. And every time we touch our sacred bundle, we touch a little bit of the journey of the others who are on this path as well. And also, we touch the lineage, generations upon generations of people who have been guided and supported and healed by such a simple component. I'll just say one thing. I was starting to carry my Mesa on the airplane, and we had a discussion in class about, well, what do we say? You know, is it going to be taken? What do we say? And of course, the TSA has gotten more experienced with taking these bundles and allowing them through. But in the earlier days, it was quite unusual. And so what I ended up doing was whatever the inspector would say, I would agree with him or her. He said, "Oh, you are a collector of stones," and I said, "Yes, I am a collector of stones." Or you, I can see that this is special to you. It's wrapped in a certain way, and I said, "Yes, this is special to me." And I wouldn't try to explain it. I wouldn't try to further it in some way. I just acknowledged other people's ability to perceive that this was unique in some way. That stones that are randomly and beautifully around the earth suddenly become collected. Suddenly they become gathered together, and they become their own ayu, or spiritual community. And so in the traveling, in any event, I'm into reflecting whatever consciousness people have about the definition of what this is. And the final point right now is, and it can't be defined. This discussion, this sharing, isn't meant to make our stewardship smaller. It's intended to expand it and to allow it and to let it grow in our hearts once again and to find some of its secrets that perhaps we discovered and maybe forgot, or that are embedded within our sacred bundle. So I want to take a minute and take a little bit about the unusual qualities of communication qualities of cloth, but I just want to make sure that we stop here. And Tricia, do you have any comments about what's been offered so far?
No, it's great so far. And if anybody has questions or wants to put comments in the chat, feel free. We don't do open sharing on this call. We do just sharing in the chat. So if you want to share anything or have any questions, put it in the chat and we'll do our best to answer and to comment.
And I'd be interested to know how it feels to hold the mesa for those of you who are prone in that direction. How does it feel to know that the stones inside you worked for, you were given? They represent certain experiences. They represent power and presence. They represent tools and healing.
I see people typing, so we'll give a few minutes.
Okay.
I'll just say that mine feels like a family member. Yeah. My mesa is comfort to me. I often sleep with my bundle and hold it close. And one person says it feels lovely to remember my work of the past and my intentions of the present. And someone says my mesa is open. I'm holding my tracking stone and touching the cloth. It feels energized. Mary says, I just recently moved, and when I picked it up and you were talking, it felt like I was home.
Mm.
Beautiful. Sean says, thank you. That was beautiful, Wake. Luce, I'm always amazed by the energy, wisdom, and love I receive from my mesa. Feels like I'm holding my baby, says Namrata.
Well,
on that note.
That is quite an appropriate comment. Should we go into that part?
Sure.
Traditionally, in the Andes, the origin of this particular type of cloth that many of us are using as mastanas to hold our special kuyas or sacred objects. These cloths originally and initially are birthing cloths or receiving blankets. Perhaps you all know this, but the lore goes that when a mother is in her pregnancy, that she dreams a pattern into being that's going to be most supportive of the soul to emerge from her body. And she goes into meditation and finds the pattern that will most support the energy construct, the luminous energy field of her new son or daughter. And so it starts out with intention to receive the new being. It continues with a yearning to craft just the right resonant pattern that most supports this new life. And then throughout the pregnancy, the cloth is crafted and the new baby received in it to an energy context or construct that he or she will be familiar with. that supports the journey, that receives the energy of the child in a beautiful, expansive way. And before these cloths became traded or sold, they were kept in the family for a lifetime. It wouldn't be unusual for a new child to keep this cloth um, next to him or her throughout life, and to add to it the special kuyas from the spiritual journey each being is taking. So there is contemporary impact from having these cloths be birthing cloths, contemporary impact from how we may use them, but it's this historical experience and purpose of these, that these are energy patterns, and that these are crafted to support new life. And they're certainly crafted to support our lives. And each one of us are the stewards, not only of our mesas and what they hold within them, but the patterns that are written on the cloth and what part of the universe that represents. And that's for us to explore. Some people decide to have new cloths over time. I've got a story about Don Francisco in that regard, that he was always wearing a poncho. When I would see him down in Cusco, he was always wearing a certain poncho. I came back to visit him one year, and initially he was wearing his poncho. I didn't recognize him because the pattern had changed from what I was used to. I didn't realize it, but I had identified him through what he was wearing. And that became a part of his persona. That became a part of who he was. And as it turned out, I asked him, and he said it was a gift from Juanita, his wife. And what Juanita had sensed was that it was time for Don Francisco to change the energetics of his own being and to explore something different. And that was reflective of patterns that she crafted for him. So it took me a while to get used to him in this new energy cape that he was wearing. And eventually, on a subsequent visit, he went back to the familiar patterns when I met him. But he was on a path of exploration for a year or two of this certain other way to conceive of the living universe that Juanita, again, his spouse, envisioned and crafted for him and gave him for his own support.
Amy says our Mesa fabric helped birth us into our new way of being.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I mean, it can be said we all had a spirit path before we ever knew of the Mesa. So this represents a certain part of it. And I don't take this as being, hey, this is my spirit path, but it's a visual symbolic reminder. It's a memory tool, and it holds tools itself. So I don't hold it or touch it every day, but I tend to know where it is. And there are seasons to it, as I've said, where sometimes it's more in phase and sometimes not. Trisha, I know you went on a journey recently. Did you take a part of your Mesa with you?
On this trip, we were doing a hiking trip, and I decided not to take my Mesa with me on this trip. I actually always ask my Mesa if it wants to go, and this time it didn't want to go. It said it was happy staying at home and that it would follow me energetically. But I did, we went to Scotland, and I gathered some stones. I brought some stones home. I knew I was going to be making another Mesa in a different Andean tradition. And so I thought it would be fun to have a Mesa that had city stones in it. And I live on the ocean, and so all of my stones are from the ocean. I live on an island, not near a city. And so I collected stones at the airports, and they're city stones from airports. And I have to say that they were so relieved to be gathered. I could feel all the stones at the airport saying, "Oh my God, take me. It's horrible here." So I now have a mesa with city stones in it from that journey.
I want to speak a little bit of the information quality or even the magic quality of the cloth itself and of the components of the cloth. Um, Perhaps some of you know what this represents. In the Andean tradition, this is called a quipu. This is a reenactment of the quipu, but what it is strings that are colored strings that are knotted. And what this is all about is that this carries information. Now, the Spanish never understood the meaning of what the strings were. And because it was its own language, they felt threatened. And when they arrived, they did their best to destroy almost all existing quipus. And there just are a few that are in the museum in Lima, I saw, and there are some scattered around the planet, but they used to be quite plentiful. What are they? Well, what they are communication tools in the most simple form, strings with knots in them. And what they would do was someone who was in a community would craft the story of the community to send to the Inca in Cusco. Now, we're familiar with different perceptual states. On a literal perceptual state, that this would be an example of, for instance, what the harvest was like that year. Like, here's a string with a nice set of knots. And so maybe there was an abundance at a certain part. Or maybe it's talking about who's in charge of the community or natural occurrences. We had a lot of rain this year or whatever. But to people who were casually observant of these, they're a mystery. They also had symbolic impact. Like, if there were quite a few knots in certain locations, that would say certain thing. There would be an energy concentration in that place. And it would talk about the mythic journey or reality of the community itself. And what would happen to these would be there would be the shaman, the string shaman, who would put together the quipu threads and give it to a runner and make use of the Inca roads. So the runners were called Chasqui runners, and they would go from Tambo, from place to place, resting place to resting place, and hand off the quipus. And when the quipu arrived to the Inca, to Cusco, to tell them of the health and well-being of the community and stories about that, there would be a special shaman who would interpret the meaning of the strings. And that special shaman was called the Quipu Kamayok, Kamai from breath. And that special shaman would breathe life into the strings. So the process of deciphering the code that was hidden here would be through the breath. And the Quipu Kamayok would breathe life into it and then tell the story of the community to the Inca. So something that is quite, I wanted to bring this to your attention because something that's quite simple, that's quite really not completely understood, even at this time. There's several books that have been written. Many people have different opinions on the exact meanings of it. And the Quipu Kamayoks knew. They knew less in their heads, they knew in their hearts. Certainly, they knew about certain aspects, what the knots would mean and what their positioning would signify. But it was the totality of perception that would bring the information and be the Quipu Kamayok, the one who could interpret the messages here. So I apply this process to having and stewarding the mesa itself. And if you think about it, a deep connection with our sacred bundle can be through the hands. And that's one of the ways that this would be interpreted. So this offering today with Trisha and myself is a high touch offering. We invite you to touch. We invite you to experience through the tactile, because that's the experience of the Inca. That's the experience of those who were familiar, beginning with the knotted strings and then going to the mesa itself. And we're going to revisit this later in our offering today. But I want to invite you in the realm of, in the honoring of this bringing to life our strings through breath, to take a moment, if you would, and connect your breath with your bundle. Connect your breath with a stone or two. Connect your breath with what you hold. And that, by tradition, that by experience, is what enlivens our connection with our bundle. And it's what begins to unravel the messages that are hidden there. So the Kipukumayo knew what they were talking about. They knew that they could interpret the sacred mysteries through the breath, through deepening the relationship and bringing the breath. And we have that same ability now, not only with any kipu that we would craft, but with our mesa, our woven bundle itself. So just take a moment, if you would, and just spend a time breathing with your mesa and experience that and sense what it feels like and what it teaches. And if you have an offering and care to share it in the chat, please do so. If you want to take your piece of paper and write what you received as your message, that would also be good.
Two comments in the chat. One is Amy's daughter was just learning about the quipus in school.
Oh, great.
And excitedly told her about them yesterday. And Mogadi says that she wove the cloth that she uses for her mesa 11 years before she created it. And that she now feels that she was preparing for her path when she wove it. So she wove her own mesa cloth, which is beautiful.
If we're talking about we're talking about our deep love for our mesa, meaning our deep love for our own spirit path, a way to get back in touch with that, a way to share this journey with the mesa is through the breath. The message I got was that I'm held in this tradition, that we are held in this tradition and not alone. And there was emotion that came up. All those people who have held these bundles, who will never know, all these people who hold them now, who are having their own spirit journey and are supported in some way by their spirit bundle itself.
Consuelo says she felt her heart and the stones in her mesa beating in unison. And Namrata says a feeling of oneness.
What did you experience, Tricia?
As I was smelling it, I was thinking about the conversation that we had about the yama. And we were talking, Wake and I were talking about this idea of, let me make sure I say it the way zero distance from Pachamama.
Yeah.
It's sort of this new concept that we're exploring, which is, it's like the zero waste, the goal to move towards zero waste. And this is sort of the zero distance from Pachamama. And we were thinking about how people who have created medicine bundles for thousands and thousands of years have zero distance in their relationship with the earth. They're born on the earth, they're put into a blanket that was created that by wool that was taken from yama that live in the mountains and that experience the rain and the snow and the dirt and they shear the animals and they dye the wool and they spin the wool themselves and they dream in the patterns, and so they really have zero distance in their life between themselves, their cloth, their stones, their medicine, and the earth. And that for most of us, we've like purchased our mastanas online, and it's kind of like the difference between raising chickens and buying eggs at a grocery store, that there's a certain level of separation between us and the earth that, say, the Andean people or other original people don't have. And so I just was thinking, like Wake was saying, that there are thousands of people around the world that have these medicine bundles or that have medicine bundles or medicine bags from different traditions, and that we are all connected through our medicine bundles. And that when I was smelling my mesa, I thought, I really can't smell the wool. I can smell the history. And I happen to know that my cloth is an old cloth, so that it's probably, I don't know, 75 or 80 years old at least. And so I can smell dirt in it. I can smell, and I am present to when I smell it. I know that as humans, when we're around each other and we breathe each other in. And so I'm present when I smell my mesa, that I'm actually breathing in molecules from the yama, from the Andes, from that dirt, from that rain, from whoever carried this cloth before I did. So I'm very present to all of that when I hold it up and put it to my nose. And just the roughness of it, the roughness of the wool feels like if you've ever grabbed onto a sheep or a llama and given them a good scratch, or any kind of farm animal, their fur, their wool is rough. It's very coarse. And so it sort of has that hint of a living thing. Even though it's woven in cloth, it still has that hint of being alive in it.
Certainly, it's beautiful, Tricia. Certainly, that's its origins from the mountains, from the lightning, the snow, the rain, from the high altitude. Francine shared something really beautiful. May I share it, Francine? My message was that the threads are the road or path of my soul. It was emotional because even the bad parts of the path became beautiful.
Sean has a beautiful comment as well. I experienced a vision of my mesa's energy expanding with every breath, like blowing up a balloon to expand the medicine over the world.
And I do want to say there's everything right about ordering the cloth online. There's so many ways to engage the path of spirit, and there's so many ways to engage this particular season in our lives. And the fact that you were aware of or chose a pattern that appealed to you, or were even given it unbeknownst to yourself before, this is spirit communing directly with you. It involves our conscious mind and our conscious choice, and it also involves what we were meant to hold and what we're meant to explore and what we're meant to reinvigorate through our touching, through our breath, through our relationship with our Mesa itself. So I'm in favor of equality of experience here. Everyone's experience is just as potent as anyone else. If I went and got the cloth directly from the weaver in Peru, that's a great experience. If I ordered it and it came in the mail and it was at my doorstep and I opened the package, that's a beautiful experience of receiving a sacred object and making it your own. That's what I'm into now, is how do we steward this bundle? How are we in relationship? How do we renew this relationship? How do we keep it alive in our hearts? And that's the purpose of our sharing today, is to explore this, not so much to evaluate how we received it, our bundle, but how are we in relationship with it now? And how can that relationship deepen? How can it support our path of spirit? It might be fun to share our first falling in love experiences, or our first experiences with our Mesa. Tricia, what do you think?
Sure. I just wanted to say one thing on that. When you said, that whether you get your cloth from someone in the Andes or you get it online, I love that you said that our mesas are the opportunity for us to create our own cosmology, and that, we learn certain traditions. It's sort of like the great jazz musician Dizzy Gillespie used to say, first you learn your instrument and then you let it wail. And, first we learn the tradition and we learn the practices, but then, especially in the Andean tradition, the teachers tell you to make it your own. And so it is, my point in saying zero distance from Pachamama is that the more we connect, the closer we are able to become to the earth. It isn't whether we get it in the Andes or we purchase it online. It's about the connection and the stewardship. And I love what Wake said about, really it's our opportunity to create our own cosmology and our own connection to the earth and to really make it our own. So yeah, I would love to move into the, when is the moment that you fell in love? And what we meant by that when we started putting this together is that, like any relationship you have, when it's new, you experience all of the beauty and all of the newness of it, and you really see yourself reflected in it. You see yourself reflected in the beauty of the relationship and the possibility. And so I wanted to give people a chance to share in the chat. And I see Robert has his hand raised, but we're actually asking people to share in the chat and not share live today. So if you can post your shares in the chat, that would be great. Can you remember a moment in your history with your Mesa where the magic became real, where you felt a connection that was not just about a teacher or training or learning a new tradition, but where you really felt connected and knew that the connection was real and the medicine was real? So if there's a moment that you can remember in your journey, just
Drop in.
make,
Yeah,
yeah.
simply drop in for a moment and remember that experience. I'm sure you know what it is, or when sometimes love grows slowly. It doesn't like hit you with a bolt of lightning, but shaman are known for that. So it could have been a bolt of lightning. It could have been a slow awareness. It could have been the reason you attended the class, or been a surprise in the process. But I think what we're asking is that moment when you recognized that this was special, the moment that you recognize that there was a lot of potential within this seemingly simple act of being given or acquiring um, a cloth, and what that might have meant or what the circumstances might have been. Those sweet initial moments live within the cloth.
I'll just say that I think part of mine was in just putting the medicine bundle together was realizing how many, like I had gathered stones my whole life. And I actually had stones all around my house that had stories in them that actually fit the directions. And so when we were guided to find three stones for the south, I barely had trouble identifying them and finding them. I mean, I knew they were my south stones immediately, and they still are. They haven't changed. They haven't needed to be replaced. They're solidly in the south with their stories. And so that was a part of it for me, was just really feeling connected to each part of the creation of it, and seeing that I already had been on the path before I started it, before I consciously started it, that I had already been on the path. Um, I'm seeing Malizi says she's connecting with synchronicities and amazing elements of her Mesa. And she said, I can't make this up. All kinds of feelings are coming up. Francine says it was after the training ended. She was sitting on the couch and grabbed her Mesa, and it was like a lightning bolt that she was connected to everything she had learned, and all the people that she had connected with were all held in the bundle. That's beautiful. Amy says, I found a cloth with a pattern that I loved. I found out later it was a teacher plant, and it holds stones inside, and she loves the old smell. And her Mesa keeps an extension and a reflection of herself. Lucita says, oh, after she did an energetic waka, where she received the sacred gifts that each stone brought back to her. She was amazed each time a client receives medicine and chooses the perfect stone based on the stories and the medicine that they hold. Mary says, Mary says she dreamt last night she was pregnant, and now we're talking about birth.
You better weave. Start weaving.
I know. Start weaving. Oh my gosh. Paula says she's always connected stones with her father. And when he died, she received his stone collections, and she has them in her garden. And every time she opens her Mesa, she falls in love with the stones again. Cynthia says her Mesa is all of her most impactful experiences, all of her energy, from the lowest to the highest vibration, and she's able to embrace and love them all. And she says her Mesa bundle was a gift from a friend in the Andes.
Beautiful.
So that is beautiful.
I want to tell a brief story about my inner cloth. I went to a first shamanic workshop in Zaca Lake in Northern California, and I was staying with some other people at a house. And around the dinner table, they said, "What kind of body work do you do?" And I said, well, I'm a lawyer. If we touch anyone, we get disbarred. So there's no body work involved in my particular calling right now. So I knew I was in for a treat, at the beginning. I knew that I was out of my depth. Let's say that. But I went to the class, and a few days happened, and I was there for personal growth. I had no intention of healing anybody. It just was not in my wheelhouse at that particular moment. But one afternoon, right after lunch, during those tired times when people get back together, there was a rustle off the circle. There were just a few of us, 8 or 10 people, and there was a rustle off to the side, and then all of a sudden came in to the very middle of the circle this pile of cloth. And I thought, what? What is this? Because I was there for something else. I was trying to put my life together and learn more about how to proceed in a positive direction. And all of a sudden came these cloths. And no sooner had they hit the middle of the floor, but there was a wild flurry of activity to go and grasp, receive uh, the cloth that was meant for you. And I realized I was totally out of my league. I didn't see it coming. I didn't know how to choose. I didn't understand what had value or anything. And so I waited till the end. And at the end was this cloth, and it was different from all the others. I call it the runt of the litter because it was what was left. I felt bad, like I'm out. I don't know how to compete in this realm, and I thought, oh, I'm just going to get what's left over. And it didn't have fancy patterns like other people's, and it just like it didn't look powerful in its very essence. It looked kind of like left left over. So anyway, that's how I started. I started left over with a leftover cloth, something that somebody else, no one else chose. And it's, with some seasonal exceptions, it's been my inner cloth ever since, where it's been with me. And we're still learning from one another. I do feel it's a mutual relationship. I'm still learning the patterns. I'm still learning its gifts. But it just, what I like about the Mesa is it came in by surprise. And I like anything that's like, I didn't see that coming. I didn't expect that. Just a side note, in case you're thinking of these things, and it may come in later, is that the Carol believe that time isn't in front of us; it comes from behind. And so my experience with not seeing this coming isn't unusual to our experience in life, where really significant things happen, and they happen on occasion by surprise. And the Caro believe this fully and firmly, and you'll know they apply it in their lives by how they wear their cloths. And I'll just say that what I've noticed in the Andes and what I've seen in practice is the women who are the primary weavers now wear their cloth behind them as a shawl. Why do they do that? One reason they do that is that if energy comes, if the future comes from behind us, they're letting the sacred patterns of the cloth inform the energy that reaches their body. And then we become the energy transformers, and we take that energy out and forward into the world. But they're very conscious of, how does energy come through me? How does energy come to me? And how can I take this life that happens? How can I take this time that's flowing from back to front? And how can I inform it in the best possible way? How can I bring my energy to it and to life and give through my being, in a pure and Sami like, refined energy like way? So I found that to be very like surprising too. Like, I think of the futures in front of us, but what they're saying is we know everything that's in front of us. And even it comes to us a little bit later than what we perceive or what we see. But we don't really know or aren't that aware or accustomed to um, to what's behind us and what's flowing through. And that's helped me a lot in my understanding. It's helped me a lot to take the cloth and to actually release the kuyas from it and to wrap myself with it and to let me feel that energy of time flowing through. So I invite you at a quiet moment to take the cloth that you have chosen, to place it around your shoulders, as do the weavers of the Andes, and feel the presence, not only of the weaver, but of the patterns. And how does that affect you? What is the experience of energy flowing through you and flowing through the patterns? And we become our own patterns in the universe, and we're putting that out into the world. So that's my story of the runt of the litter, how we're still in relationship now, and how I feel like there's unexplored territory there in terms of energy flowing through us. How do we experience it? How can we work with its texture? And how can we learn from our cloth in that way? Not through like looking at the pattern so much, but feeling the impact of the energy of life flowing through us, being informed by the sacred symbology of the carol.
I just want to say that there are a few more comments about falling in love with the Mesa in the chat that I just want to share. One is Consuelo said she took her medicine bundle to a party and she felt like the stones were just as happy as she was to be going going to the event. And Mogadi says her first time that she really sort of fell in love with her mesa was when she fed her mesa, and she felt deeply nourished at the same time, and that it really was nourishing for everyone that was participating in that. And Robert says that his mesa has become an intrinsic part of his daily ritual, and that he knew his cloth immediately when he saw it, and that he really hasn't been attracted to any other cloth or any other pattern since he chose the one for his mesa, which I think is great and really
That's
interesting.
yours. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and one other little thing about well, what about all the bells and whistles? Like literally, like so much. And you've seen this, you've experienced it yourself. There's a ringing of the bells. What is that about? It's about an energy shift. That's what I learned from Don Francisco. It's about changing the relationship with the metal on metal and with that sound. It's taking the energetic construct and just shifting it. Like the bells that are offered are often just a little bit off in tone or frequency, and that's meant to shake things up. That's intended to shift the dynamics of the luminous energy field which surrounds the mesa and which surrounds ourself. So that's a way to shift perception, to shift our relationship, is to ring the bells or do something that breaks something up, breaks the matrix up and reforms it, allows it to reform. And of course, the Florida water, also a good thing to connect again, the breath, to connect the Kamayo. Make a deep connection of the lineage through the breath and nourish or water the fabric and the stones in your mesa. So all this is intended to be like a surprise date, or like, oh, like all of a sudden, like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect, flowers are good, but Florida water, that's kind of a surprise. That's a nice connection. It feels warm. I can feel your breath on me from the point of view of the Mistana, and celebrating the relationship. we're about to get to stones, and there's something about stones in terms of tapping them together. That's also a connective principle and a way to change and shift the energy. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute when we get to stones.
So Francine just asked, what are you asking when you're ringing the bells? And I've seen Pacos use bells for a number of different things. Um, I know that Wilbert uses bells to sort of set an intention. So he finishes the despacho, and when all the prayers and dreams have been set into the despacho, he rings the bells over the despacho to really like set the intention and to it. And for me, I feel like sometimes with the bells, it really is setting a healing. Like a lot of times at the end of a healing session, I'll hear this voice saying, pick up the bells and ring them over the person's energy body to really set the intention, to set the healing. So, and again, I think you're creating, it's your own cosmology, right? So you use the bells when you feel it's right. But do you have anything to add to that, Wake, about the bells?
Well, it's music to my ears, I
Yeah.
mean, you don't have to go, you can
Right.
you can you can play a little, you can play a little concert. But invariably, like how I learned about the Mesa was going to Peru and watching the Caro. And what I saw was they carry bells with them. I'm not saying that it's an essential for it for you, but the bells come also from the Yama, and it takes us back to the origins of the cloth. So the bells are carried by the Yama and the alpaca, and it's a transporting mechanism to go back to the origins of the mesa itself, and this one in particular. And it's sweet music to your bundle, and I believe shakes up or renews energy. It's refreshing the relationship. It's paying attention. And of course, as you're saying, Tricia, as Wilbert says, is setting an intention and bringing it in. But um, l- let's just say, and
What
finally, it's a recognition. It's a
mm,
recognition of the relationship, of just saying, you're important to me. I want to be in relationship. And it's not just one dimension. There's a feeling dimension. There's a listening dimension. There's a fragrance dimension. It's like one of my teachers said, trade thinking for sensing. Trade thinking about my Mesa for sensing all the gifts that it has. And this is part of enlivening our senses in relationship to our Mesa. If we only saw our partners and we looked at their face and, just, oh, there's that same old mole or whatever, and that would be one thing. But if we open it up to the beauty of the totality of the relationship through our senses and through our awareness, then it deepens the relationship. And this is part of that deepening process. Recognizing, paying attention, deepening the relationship with the Mesa through the beautiful music of
and
it.
thank you for that. I just also realized that what one person was asking is, what were you saying when you ringing the bells?
Oh,
And
sorry.
one of the practices that you can do with your mesa is to tap your heart and tap your belly and tap your forehead.
Yeah.
And what Wake said was Tukwi Munay Nyok, all the power of love, which is at your heart. So Tukwi Munay Nyok, and then Tukwi Yankai Nyok, which is at your belly, which is the power of right action, and Tukwi Yachai Nyok at your third eye, the top of your head for right seeing. So all the power of love, all the power of right action, and all the power of
Yeah.
right seeing and thinking.
Yeah,
You
that's
were saying that while you were ringing the bells.
I know, I couldn't help myself.
I,
I just got into it of
yeah.
just like, okay, what is this about? It's about aligning our energy body, for one thing. It's not just about the gifts, it's not just about the healing properties. It's about aligning ourselves to our mesa and to the cosmology. And that's one of the beauties about the living relationship with the mesa It's an embodiment of the principles. It helps, since this is a body, this is a living being, and it contains living beings of sacred stones within it. This is a community. This is an ayu. This is a spiritual community itself that we steward. And part of the understanding of the Inca and their spiritual advisors, the Caro, um, that always is something to remember. I've said it before, but I just want you to be reminded that the Inca are the people of light. They're the people who honor the sun. They're the people who bring the community together. And their advisors of spirit were the Caro. So the Caro were the advisors to the Inca in the times when they most were active. And so the Inca themselves would look to the Caro for guidance. Some of the guidance that they were talking about, the Caro, is this deep Munay. And that's what we're doing. We're recognizing the Munay, or love, that's held within our bundles. The love of the weaver in choosing the patterns, the love of the llama or alpaca, the love of the infant that was going to be received by the cloth, the love of the family, the love of the community, all is within our bundles. And there's an alignment function. Tuku Munay Niok, the total power of love. Tuku Yachai Niok, the total power of wisdom. They didn't start with wisdom first. They began with love first. So the Mesa reminds us to begin with love. Tuku Munay Niok. Tuku is total. Munay, love. Niok, power of. So Tuku Munay Niok, the power of love, rises up and informs our wisdom. So Tuku Yachai Niok. What we know in our minds goes down and informs our every step. Tuku Yankai Niok. So these three aspects of balance within our luminous energy field, within ourselves, is replicated through the Mesa and can be informed, as Tricia says, by placing the Mesa at our heart, by placing the Mesa at our forehead or crown, by placing the Mesa at our solar plexus, and taking a breath at each place. This informs us, this aligns us, this reminds us of the power of Munay, of coming from love, coming to life in love, and being in relationship from that place with wisdom, with steps that are in alignment. Are we ready to open the mesas? What should we do?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So you have your bundle, or your sacred mesa perhaps is already open. Let's go ahead and open it. And I want to invite you. You may have done this 1,000 times before, but when I worked with Don Francisco, what he invariably would do is he'd go around the circle and pick one or two special stones for the moment. They weren't necessarily the only special stones, but they're the special stones for the moment. And I'd just like to invite you through trading thinking for sensing. It may be a stone that you're quite familiar with. It may be a new one, but it's an invitation to allow yourself to be drawn to a stone or two that feel most resonant for these moments, that feel most powerful or present to you now. So I invite you to take a moment and allow yourself to be drawn to a stone or two that speak to you at this time. And allow yourself in the tradition of the Kipu Kumayok to take your stone or stones, bring them or it to your mouth, and let there be a connection of breath. And holding the stone or stones in your hands, allow yourself to experience them anew. Perhaps remembering their origins, how they came to you, perhaps what their lessons or teaching or guidance is now. What do these stones have to offer? And take a moment to sense that and place it in your notes or on the chat if you would, please. Who has anyone to share, has something to share from that?
If you have something to share and you can put it in the chat, that would be great. While people are typing, I'll just share that this is one of my east stones, and I picked this up out of my Mesa. And I always think it kind of looks like a planet or like the galaxies or like looking through the Milky Way or something. And I realized when I blew on it that when this stone is wet, you can actually see through it. And so when I blew on it, there was enough breath that it became translucent. And so it was like I could see into the galaxy, I could see into the Milky Way. So it was a brand new experience for me with this kuya was the transformation of my breath on the stone. So thank you for that, Wake.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And Francine said the stone told me that it was my heart and the feminine. Oh, the left stone told me it was my heart and the feminine. The right stone said it was the masculine and that they should work together. That's great. For people who have the gallery view, you can share your stone. You can hold them up if you put something in the chat.
Mine told me they wanted to touch my body and just like almost saying like, why are you leaving me in the cloth all the time? You know, like bring me out and let me be touched. And yeah, and let the power of the kuyas go directly onto the skin.
In some Andean traditions, the teachers actually encourage you to take your mesas to bed with you at night, to bring them to sleep with them, or to at least sleep with a stone. Take a stone to bed with you, put it under your pillow, hold it next to your body, and see what kind of messages it has for you. Yeah. Yeah. So just making note of what you're hearing and sensing and feeling from your stones today, letting them remind you of who they are for you, who you are for them, your connection to the stones and the teachings that they hold. Um, Lucita says, my broken stone said there was beauty and power in brokenness, and we need not fear. And Mary says, one stone told me to open up my heart more, and the other stone told me to stop resisting my gifts. The road may not be smooth, but it will be okay. Robert says, I'm traveling and will do this at home. I'm very grateful to have the recording. And Lucita says, my chumpy stone completed with love because love is the answer. Nice. After the conversation today, I'm also really present to my lineage stone
Hmm.
and what that means, to that connection to the thousands of years of this tradition being practiced on the earth. Consuelo says she picked up a pink crystal and a white crystal. And she closed her eyes and blew into them and heard something like, always remember you are sending love and light into the world.
Hmm.
Beautiful.
Well, so we've done a little bit of the cloth. I wonder if we want to find out if the weaver has any message before we go on to the synergy of stone and cloth. Do we want to ask that?
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about the seke idea.
Okay. Um, well, there's a sense in the Andes, beyond calling it Mesa, Misha, medicine bundle, whatever you might say, that it's a waka, Wak apostrophe A. And some of you may be familiar with this. There's a certain technique that's learned to make your mesa a waka, but how the shaman feel about it is that this itself is the presence of power. It's focalized energy. It's energy brought together in a very intentional way. And that creates um, a special relationship with ourselves and with everything else on the planet. It's similar to the Chosky runners. Is here's a point that has power, and then it's being sent. That point is being sent by the Chosky runners to another place of interpretation. But it can be seen that we ourselves are wakas, we ourselves are concentrations of energy and presence and power, and certainly our mesas, and with the intent that we place within it, within them, that they focus their energy on that particular matter, like for healing, for instance, or connection with the world. And so it's a whole system of a waka, which is a concentration of power, and then the seke, which are the invisible lines of connection or communication between one waka and another. So, in essence, in our screens, those are all wakas. Those are all little focuses, little concentrations of power and energy. I see your waka. Yeah. I see the waka within you, Tricia.
Right.
And that we connect with each other, both all the time, by simply having a mesa. Our mesas are wakas, and they're doing their own work in the world and connecting with one another. But certainly with our intentions and with our specific thoughts in mind, that the wakas create these invisible pathways. And Tricia and I were discussing this yesterday. This connection actually renews the universal energy field, the Kausai Pacha. And this connective quality builds and concentrates energy and shares it. So a waka isn't much in isolation. It's not much by itself, but shared, it's everything. Shared, it gives love, concentrates love, and shares it, sends it out, concentrates healing, and sends it out to a client, for instance, from either a kuya or the mesa as a whole. So every time that we make connection with our bundles, we're drawing a seke, an energy line between ourselves and our sacred bundles. And that is a renewal of the energy universe. That's a renewal of our relationship with one another. If Tricia and I never talked via Zoom or any other way, it would kind of like, the sekes wouldn't be renewed. The connections wouldn't be vital and present. They would fall away. And so just as with friends or a special relationship, you want to send out those sekes. You want to send out either in literal form, through a call or a text, or through symbolic form and energetic form, through your intention or simply setting up your mesa the way you want. That's why it's so important to have a good relationship with your mesa, because that's the energy bundle that is your waka. That's the one that is shared with others and shared across the luminous field in the universe. What else about that, Tricia?
Well, I was just thinking as you were speaking that when Shamans Directory was coming into being, I got all kinds of messages and was typing madly in the middle of the night. And one of the messages was to create this directory of healers and teachers from around the world. And I sort of was like questioning the idea of creating it and how it was going to happen. And I heard this voice clearly say, "What does WWW stand for?" And it took me a few minutes to have the image come in clearly, but WWW stands for World Wide Web. And what I was being asked to create was, or to illuminate, is that web of healing energy that already exists around the earth, that needs to be illuminated. It's already there. And each one of us is an integral part of lighting it up. And that connection that we have to our mesa that creates that seke, that sends that line of energy out to that web, illuminates the whole of the web. And so for me, every time I think, I'll never think of World Wide Web in the same way ever again. It has a whole new meaning for me, and really encouraging people to know that your energy bundle, which holds your medicine, is an integral part of that web. So that's what it is for me.
That's very nice. And Robert, you have a good comment here. We're members of a live presence in this world that we can invoke and add to by intent to bring love and healing. That field is alive by bringing it into life each day. That's the potential of the Mesa. That's the potential of us as living wakas. And so if we think of ourselves more in those terms, I love that description, Tricia, about illuminating the web, bringing light and life and energy and sami, refined energy, to the web of life itself. How do we do that with our relationships? How often can we renew that web, those sekes? and not let them degrade, but freshen them with our relationship, with our spirit path, with our relationship each one to another. And this is what I say, that the Mesa is valuable in and of itself, but to help us embody this, what you're talking about, Tricia, is embodiment of the concept. You're talking about yourself as being a waka and then informing the universe, the living universe, by bringing light to it. Well, thank you, Mesa, for that insight. Thank you, Mesa, for that practice. And we can use this as a vehicle, and we can go directly ourselves in terms of influencing all the relationships, all the sekes we have. And obviously, just to sum up on that, we can be discriminate with our sekes. We don't have to renew them all the time of the relationships we have. We can choose ours, and we can heighten those. And there's a sensing that we go through. What is going to serve us? What's going to serve humanity? What's going to serve the Kausai Pacha itself? How can we put energy into that? How can we put ourselves, our love, and our light into those? And this is a little power generator, and this is a little battery that can propel many things. And it's a reminder of our spirit path, and to run things through the Mesa, our intention through the Mesa, helps not only to enliven our own path of spirit, but the Mesa is a vehicle for expressing that into the world. I'm more excited about the Mesa than I was when we started this, Tricia.
Excellent. I am too. I mean, I actually have a number of mesas now. It's funny, in different Andean traditions, people use mesas in different ways. And Puma Quispe, who's one of the Andean teachers who's pretty well known, he teaches on the Shift Network. He actually comes from a community where they have mesas that are used like remedies. Like if you know an herbalist who has remedies for different things, they use a different herb to treat indigestion, or a different herb for, menstrual cramps, or a different herb or different treatments for healing relationships, that they actually have a mesa for each different thing. And to me, that's overwhelming. But again, that's the way that he grew up, in the tradition that he grew up in, and it's normal to him, just like an herbalist has different traditions. But I am more inspired to connect with my mesas, and more, I guess what it brings to mind for me is that when I'm really connected to my mesa, I'm really connected to myself and my purpose. And when I'm not connected, and my purpose isn't always easy. What I feel I'm told to do sometimes in life is not always at the top of my to-do list, like in terms of really feeling comfortable with my capacity to do certain things. But connecting to my mesa reminds me that I can't let myself off the hook. I can go back into, when I'm not connected to my mesa, I can go back into sort of my everyday life and thinking, I don't really have to do that. I can do that later. I'll do that thing that I know I'm supposed to do someday, but I don't really feel like doing it today. I have other things I need to do today. And my mesa is this reminder of, no, actually, you should be doing that today. You should do that now. Not someday, not next week, not next year. You should actually do that now. And so it brings me right back in touch with myself.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
Here's a comment from Francine. I like the part about us not only creating, but illuminating what is already in existence. Beautiful. It might be good, in light of what you offered, Tricia, to use the Mesa for a moment to see if it has a message to us at this time about our calling, about our spirit work. Is there any more information now that we're in living relationship, active relationship with our energy bundle? Is there any message there? Is there any kind of encouragement or suggestion of how to deepen or how to fulfill our earthly calling and how to work on our path? What do you feel about that?
Sounds great.
Let's go ahead
Take a
then.
minute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's go ahead then and connect again with our mesas or those two stones or one or two stones that you chose, and just spend a moment. And you could breathe into your mesa, you could let it touch your heart or another place where it feels like it belongs. Allow yourself um, to hold your spirit bundle, hold your own waka, and to ask through the lineage, since we are a part of this lineage, what is our calling? What is a next step? What is a deepening that's offered to us that would serve us and our journey even more? And if you could share your message in the chat or write it down for yourself. What would most serve the lineage now? What would most serve your path? Did you receive anything in particular, Tricia?
Well, I get the same message every day. And my message is just answer the next email. And as a therapist, I was an addiction and trauma therapist for almost 40 years for people who don't know. And when I used to talk to clients and they were telling me that they know what they need to do, but the big picture is too scary, like they're just really overwhelmed by the big picture, I would always say, when the big picture is too scary, don't look up. And like just do the next thing in front of you. Don't worry about the big picture. Just do what's in front of you and the big picture will handle itself. And so today I have a project ahead of me that scares me on a daily basis. And when I ask spirit, what's next, all I hear every day is just answer the next email. So so that's the message I get from my Mesa every day. So
It must really believe that about you.
just answer the next email. You may not be able to handle the big picture, but you can definitely handle the next email. So Francine says, go to Peru. The land is calling you. Robert says, live in loving connection. and remember that we are a living organism. We are one living organism. Terrell says, stay the course.
What I got was to really believe that this is a waka, to really believe that I am one as well, and to activate that system and to send energy and also receive it uh, from one another. You know, receive the good vibrations from each other, and that the world allows. And as you say, Tricia, to bring light to the sekes that exist, and intentionally build and renew uh, the living energy universe. I think that's part of our job. I think that's why we're called together. Not that we don't have individual pursuits, but I think we have our mesas as being stewards of these energy radiators. And what do we do with that? And how do we direct it? And how do we renew it and enliven it in our lives and in the world?
Francine just said something really great too. She said, practicing shamans often forget to receive. And I think that's true for all healers is we forget to receive. We're so busy giving, 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 giving that we forget to receive. And we forget that the sekes go out, but they also come back. And that we can be empowered by all of the energy beings and each other and each other's medicine. We are all empowered. Let's see. Lucita says, come to the valley with floral aromas. And Robert says, this is a jeweled web of give and take. I love that reminder too, that we are wakas and that, you know, well, I'll speak for myself. I constantly disempower myself. You know, I constantly say, who am I to think blah, 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 like whatever it is, who am I to think that? And I forget that I do have medicine and power and that it has been given to me as I don't know what the word is for it, as it's been passed on to me, it's been handed down to me, and to own it, not to deny it.
And the other thing is, we've talked a lot about the origins of cloth and the llama and the alpaca up in the high Andes. And I want to put a plug in because it came out in the card reading this morning for the apus themselves, for the sacred mountains themselves, because each one of these stones, in a certain way, no matter where they were collected or their origins, come from Pachamama, come from the apus. And the apus, by lore, are the holders of the great wisdom. So every time that we send a seke to our mesa, whether we have it in our hands or not ourselves, we're invigorating that relationship with all the knowledge of the world and the sacred knowledge that's been kept in the apus. So certainly we can send sekes to Asangate, the holy peak of the Incas. We can send a seke to our own Ayu Apu, our own local mountain, or Nusta, as we choose. We can we can get into the process or renew the habit of sending our energy directly and receiving. Speaking of that, offering and receiving the blessings and inspiration of the mountains themselves. We have a whole world in our hands that represent, and between us collectively, we do cover the world of the sacred places that we've visited, the sacred spots that we've done ceremony, the sacred stones that we have taken into our stewardship. And knowing one another, knowing that there are other Mesa holders out there who have a similar experience with stewarding a waka. Uh, that is a fine that is a fine calling in itself. That we do have a purpose, and we believe, and we're supported that by that in that both by the community and by this lineage and the Apus and their stars. Again, by lore, each major mountain has a celestial component, has a star associated with it. So not only are we touching into the wisdom of the Apus, we're directly connected with the energy of the stars. And this energy of the Waka doesn't just come from us, doesn't just come from our journey, doesn't come from the collected stones or the cloth we steward. It comes from the Apus, and it comes from the stars.
Wow. I'm, as usual, loving this conversation and realizing that we're about 10 minutes
Oh, okay.
before.
I love the comment. You are amazing, Trisha.
Oh, thanks. I think you're all amazing
you,
too.
your waka is shining.
Well, I have to say that, as we near the end of this particular session, I am so appreciative for all of your energy, Wake, that you bring, and for everybody's energy who's creating this network of energy that we're experiencing today for this session. And to say that, just going back for a minute to that concept of zero separation between us and Pachamama, that, if you think about right this moment now, and when we started this call today, 2 hours ago, that think of how much more connected that, how the distance between you and the earth and you and your Mesa you're much closer to zero separation than we were 2 hours ago. And it made me think two things. One is I had a teacher who would say, when you call in spirit, when you call in directions, when you call on power animals and the winds of the directions and the apus and the oceans, when you call on them, they know they're being called. I remember someone asking a question, how do you know when you call on the puma, whether the right puma is showing up? And the teacher said, that puma has been called on for thousands of years. You don't have to worry about which puma it is. It knows who's being called. And so when we call on the spirits, when we work with our Mesa, we don't have to wonder about whether that force is joining us. It is. It knows who's being called. And it made me think about Wilbert and the last despacho that he did, when he said, you should all be really happy that we made this despacho because it's going to work. And it's also sort of like zero separation from doubt. There's zero when you call in the elements and the helping spirits, that in some cultures there's zero doubt about whether that support is there. And I know, at least for me, when I get into my human Western mind, the doubt can creep in. I don't have that zero distance between me and doubt. And when I'm really connected to my Mesa, there's really zero doubt that I'm supported, I'm connected, and part of that web.
In furtherance of that zero separation and unity with spirit, unity with Pachamama, unity with the Apus and the stars, and our own spirit path. Let me just say that we planned on spending the last moment or so reconnecting directly with our Mesas. And in your mind, through your seke of intention or in your hands holding your sacred bundle, let us give ourselves the gift of the Waka Kamayok. Let us awaken within ourselves this tradition of breathing life into our sacred bundle, into our Waka, letting it come to our hearts, feeling the Munay that is the core of this tradition. Tuku Munay Niyok, feeling the love that's within our wakas, letting that love be informed by what we know, breathing into our cloth and to our kuyas, letting what we know guide us, guide our every step, so we walk in alignment with our purpose in the world. Let the Mesa support us. Let us become the Waka Kamayoks we were always meant to be. Let us renew this relationship with spirit and the vital relationship of our woven cloth and the sacred objects it contains. That together, the synergy of this Mesa, this synergy of the components of the Waka, can deepen, naturally deepens our path of spirit that we send out into the world simply through who we are. Let us take one more deep breath. And blow our connection. Send our connection. Breathe our connection with our bundles, with one another, with the great lineage that is a part of each of our spirit paths. Let us know that we are not alone, always informed and always supported in sacred community. Aho.
So we want to thank everyone for being here today. And if you would like to renew your vows with your Mesa, at this moment, we invite you to do that. And you can post it in the chat or write it down. Anything you'd like to promise your Mesa, any vows you'd like to exchange, feel free to just make them in your heart or make them on paper or share them in the chat. And we thank you for being here today and being with us. And we hope we will see you again. We have in a couple of weeks, we have Elizabeth Jenkins coming to join us from the Wiracocha Foundation. And she is quite an amazing woman who has really had the Caro in her heart for about 30 years and has done amazing, amazing work with them. So she'll be with us in a couple of weeks to share her journey, her love story with the Caro people. So thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you for keeping us in your heart, and we take you into our hearts as well. And we wish you a wonderful rest of your weekend wherever you are on this earth.
Tupanachi's Kama, as they say, we never say goodbye. We say we'll experience you again in whatever form, in a memory, in a dream, in a thought. Tupanachi's Kama. It's a great honor to be with you.